event, an evening with Dolores Huerta. My name is Brenda Membreno, and I am the Senior Library Assistant for the 81st Avenue Community Library. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Friends of the Oakland Public Library for making this event possible. Before we start, I'd like everyone to know that this event will be translated to Spanish live. Si gustaría escuchar esta entrevista en español, por favor seleccione el idioma en español en la opción de interpretación hacia abajo. También seleccione silenciar contenido original para que no se escuche un eco. I would like to let everyone know that there will be a Q&A chat box available for you below to submit your questions. We'll get to those after the interview. And now let me introduce our illustrious guest, whom we are truly honored to have speak with us tonight, Dolores Huerta. She is a civil rights activist and community organizer. She has worked for labor rights and social justice for over 50 years. In 1962, she and Cesar Chavez founded the United Farm Workers Union. She served as their vice president and played a critical role in many of the union's accomplishments for 4 decades. In 2002, she received the Puffin Nation 100,000 Prize for Creative Citizenship, which she used to establish the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Dolores Huerta is the president and founder of the Dolores Huerta Foundation, which is connecting groundbreaking community-based organizing to state and national movements to register and educate voters, advocate for education reform, bring about infrastructure improvements in low-income communities, advocate for greater equality for the LGBT plus community, and create strong leadership development. She has received numerous awards, among them the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award from President Clinton in 1998. In 2012, President Obama bestowed Dolores with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Oakland welcome to the legend and champion of human, civil, and labor rights, the iconic Dolores Huerta. Ms. Huerta, thank you for joining us this evening. You could. Oh, there you are. Hi there.
Hello, everybody.
We're going to start off asking a couple of questions, and then we'll open the discussion up for the public.
Okay.
It's nice to see you. So we just got a couple of questions, and I'm just going to go ahead and start. One of the questions that we had was, at the age of 25, you were already training people from grassroots organizations. What sparked your passion for activism, and what kept you going?
Well, I was actually very lucky because by the age of 25, I met this great organizer named Fred Ross Sr. And by the way, there's a documentary that's being made about Fred Ross. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. There's a documentary that's being filmed about Fred Ross Sr. And I'm sure his son, who lives, by the way, in Berkeley, Fred Ross Jr., is raising money for the documentary right now. But Fred Ross Sr. had been very active in organizing Latinos in Orange County many years ago to stop the desegregation of schools there. And I'm sure that the library has in its possession the documentary Mendes versus Westminster. I'll repeat that, Mendes versus Westminster. And Fred Ross went into the farm worker community there and was able to organize people to end that segregation. In the documentary, by the way, they barely mention his name, but he is the one that really organized the people how to end that segregation. And so I met Fred Ross in Stockton, California, not too far from Oakland, where he showed us how to do this grassroots organizing at the Grand, and there in Stockton. Then we did organize that group, and it was organized all over the state of California. And we passed many important pieces of legislation that affected the Latino community. I'm going to just mention a few of them. An important one was that we could register people, that anybody who was a citizen could register somebody else to vote. Before that, you couldn't do that. It's like in Texas. In Texas today, you have to find a deputy registrar to register you, otherwise you can't register to vote. So that made a lot of difference in the state of California. And this was back in 1963, that many years ago. So, and we're the ones that did that work to make that happen. Another piece of legislation that I lobbied to the legislature was that people who had legal status in the United States, that they could get public assistance. And that was you could get assistance for aid to the people that were blind, people that were disabled, and eventually aid to needy children. And that was huge, because to this day, after we passed it here in California, they passed it at the national level. And today there's about 15 million people that are getting that kind of public assistance that they need. Then there was another important bill that we passed to get driver's licenses for it's Spanish that they didn't have before, and the ballots in the Spanish language. So this all happened when I was 25 years of age, and I was able to be able to do this work because I learned this grassroots community organizing from Mr. Ross.
Oh, that's really great. Oh my God. And what would you tell yourself when you were facing challenges? I know you were faced with a lot of police brutality with all of the activism that you had done. Like, what kept you going? What kept you fighting?
Well, the thing is that we know that we have a lot of work to do, and we can't let things like that stand in our way or stop the progress that we have to make. We have other big bills that we passed that affected many, many people, like the amnesty bill in 1986, under which millions of people, especially farm workers, we had about over 1 million farm workers that got their legalization status there. We know we're fighting some of those same issues today. So obviously we're not going to stop, even if we get beat up by the police.
Yes, well, thank you for that. Yeah, I know the fight's still not done. And I'm always thinking about your slogan, "Si se puede," and you just keep it going, right? Which did you ever think that your slogan, "Si se puede," would become so big?
No, I didn't. I mean, that's just one of those things that, I always say it came from the universe to be shared by everyone.
I watched your documentary, Dolores, which is available at the library.
Oh, good.
And one of the things that was kind of hard to watch is after Cesar Chavez passed and they were deciding on who to be the next president for the United Farm Workers. It seemed like you were passed up because you were a woman. I know at the time it seemed like they thought that the men would actually be a better candidate for the presidency, or to be the president for that. How did that make you feel?
Well, actually, it's really unfortunate that Peter Bratt, he's a really, really great film director, but and he made La Misión, which is another one. If you haven't got it in the library, please be sure to get it. And that's a story about a young gay man and the conflict that he had with his father. And it's a great movie. And so Peter likes to kind of focus on those kind of relationships of tension. But actually, and he did film me, but did not include it in the documentary, why I chose not to run for the presidency. And so it wasn't that anybody I'm actually the one that promoted Arturo Rodriguez to be the president.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and because I was when Cesar died, I was 65 years old. I didn't know how long I was going to live. My mother died at 51 from cancer. My father died in his 70s. So I didn't know how long I was going to live, and I felt that the foundation, the things that we needed for the union to go forward, we had the agricultural labor relations law. We had a lot of good laws that we had passed for farm workers. And I felt that we could get somebody else to lead the union forward and to get a younger person, because a leadership is something that you cannot pass it on. People have to learn how to be leaders, and they have to go through those conflicts and the pressures of becoming a leader. And at that point in time, the people on our board, I felt that Arturo Rodriguez was the best one that could do that. And this is why I promoted him. The one thing I do have to say is that for some reason, there was some feeling that among people, even though like I promoted Arturo, worked for him to get the presidency, that I don't know, you know how the macho thing goes, right? But let me say this today. And I think because of the movie, is that today the president of the United Farm Workers is a woman, Teresa Romero. The majority of the people on the executive board of the union are women. Okay. And so, and I think this is because of the movie, because a lot of people had that impression. And I know in the documentary, we have two of my friends, Wendy Greenfield and Barbara Carrasco. Yeah, they wanted me to take on that role. The other thing that kind of in my thought process at the time, I had taken a leave of absence from the union just before Cesar died, the year before he died, to work with the Feminist Majority Foundation. And our goal was to get more women to run for public office. And that's what we had been working on. And the other thing is that Cesar and I, before he died, just before he died, we had talked about going, getting back to the grassroots community organizing that we learned from Fred Ross when we passed all of those laws that I was talking about. And so I just felt, well, this is the opportune time for me to start doing that. So that's when I stepped down from the union. And that's my foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation. This is exactly what we're doing. And so we are organizing people at the grassroots level. And we are active now in 4 different counties, the Antelope Valley, which is part of Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Kern County, several towns in Kern County, in Tulare County, several towns in Tulare County, and also in Fresno County. And so the Dolores Huerta Foundation, we have 50 full-time staff people, and then we have canvassers that can go anywhere from 20 to 100. And we've been doing an awful lot of work in the grassroots organizing, getting people in the community to decide what are the issues that they have to address in their community. And it can go anywhere from education issues, infrastructure issues, and I could give you a laundry list of all of the things that they have accomplished, anywhere from neighborhood parks, swimming pools, a state-of-the-art gymnasium that the parents advocated for in Weed Patch, California, where The Grapes of Wrath was filmed. Okay, and more recently, we've been doing. I'll start from where we're at right now and then go backwards. But we did a lot of work in the census. And because of our work in the census, we have a lot more Latino or people of color districts in the Central Valley. And we did the work on the redistricting. And the Independent Commission accepted our maps. And by the way, and not just the Dolores Huerta Foundation, because we have made coalitions with other groups, to work on this. But our maps, which were our unity maps, in the Central Valley have been accepted by the Independent Commission. So that was a really, really great victory. So while we have part of our group that was working on redistricting, then we have a big education program. So we're active in 17 different school districts, covering almost 200 schools. We organize the parents and we organize the students, and 40% of the recommendations that have been made have been accepted, by the different school districts. And some of those are very big, like when the pandemic broke out, to make sure that they continued having the lunch programs for the students, that they did not stop those, because some of the districts wanted to stop that to save money. We said, no, you can't do that. Another example is one school district wanted to put $350,000 into more police on the campuses. Well, our education group said, no, we're not going to have that. And we stopped that. And that money was transferred over to get more school counselors, more school nurses, and more social workers. So this is very important work.
Yes, that is very much needed.
Yeah, plus we're working on stopping the school-to-prison pipeline. And we actually sued the Kern High School District because they had expelled over 2,500 students in 1 year. And 2,500, we could imagine that. And these are majority students of color. So we won the lawsuit, and from 2,500 expulsions, it is now down to like about 20 a year. So, when we think about that, and this is something I like to remind people, that in the San Joaquin Valley, starting from Bakersfield to Sacramento, they have built 22 prisons and only one university, the University of Merced. So again, and then the other stuff that we've been doing, during COVID, we were the different groups who gave us like $300,000. And that money we used to send it to especially to a lot of the undocumented families that weren't able to get, any kind of help any other way. We've done over 60 COVID clinics, which we do every single weekend, and we do it in different areas. Our canvassers go door to door to sign up people, to get testing, and we have actually vaccinated over 6,000 people. So we also have a youth program. So, we have a lot, and the reason that we can do all of these different programs is because we have a lot of people that we organize at the grassroots level that are the volunteers, and they're the ones that do the work. One day we had 10 food banks at the same time. And so we had over 300 volunteers that helped us distribute the food. So, the whole, our mission in the Dolores Huerta Foundation is to organize volunteers in communities so that they are the ones, we empower them. We're not going to do the work for them. We organize them, and then we teach them how to do the work for themselves. So the one thing we say to people, you can't change conditions, or you can't think that someone is going to come in there and do this for you. You are the ones that have to be empowered to do the work. And so that is the way that we work. Oh, I didn't mention too that we have a youth program. And so we have a youth program in all of the different areas that we work. So.
Thank you, because I know we need a lot more programs for youth.
Yes, definitely.
That is such a huge team that you have there. How do you deal with training everyone to make sure everyone's on the same page and giving the same level of work?
Well, we have continuous training. And I do want to say that I'm the president of the foundation, but we have a lot of great leaders that we have in our group, our education director. We have every single area we have the people that do the clinics as one group. By the way, we're going to be starting on doing the organizing on voter registration, which is our civic group. And so we have the director of our youth group. So every single program has their own director. And of course, the person that really makes sure that this is all running and that we stay on track is our executive director, who happens to be my youngest daughter. You saw her in the film. She was the one that was that was crying for her mother, Camila Chavez. And I always tease Camila, and because in the documentary, she was the one that was crying. But when she went to college at Mills College, she called me from the hallway, and I guess it was one of the dorms, and she said, "Mom, you're not going to believe this. That there are girls here that are crying for their mother." So I remind her and say, "Hey, what happened in the film?" It was a whole different story. But Camila was just, and you might want to Google this, but Camila just last week, or I should say a couple of weeks ago, she was awarded recognized as an outstanding leader for the state of California, and that came with a $250,000 grant, and that was given to Camila. Her recognition came from the Irvine Foundation.
That's beautiful. Speaking of your daughters, there was an interview that I remember seeing that you were, at the time, you were working with one of your daughters to create an autobiography with Juanita Chavez, I believe. Is that still in the works?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we're working, not only that, but I think you'll love this one because we're working to try to, well, let me put it this way. We are having a building built in Bakersfield, California, right there in the heart of Kevin McCarthy's district, the Republican leader in the Congress. And it's going to be an organizing academy so that we can teach other people our organizing method. Of course, we're going to have a youth development center there, a child care center, and a credit union will all be on the same. It's a city block, by the way, it's big. And we already have raised $22 million. We have to raise another $7 million for the center. And that's going to be kind of our base there that we have there in Bakersfield, California. And so, but part of that, and you're going to love this, this is the part you're going to love. We're going to have like a holograph. And I don't know if you've seen this. They have one in Houston. I don't know in California if we have one, but in Houston, Texas, they have the holograph of a victim of the Holocaust. This is in the Holocaust Museum in Houston, Texas. And you can go up, the holograph is sitting in a chair and it looks like a real person. And you can go there where the holograph is cased in, and you can ask the person questions and they will answer the question. It's amazing. So we're going to have to raise about $600,000 for that. And so I'll be working on that so that, you know, and so we cannot say who said that there is not life beyond death. Okay. And so we're going to be working on this so that in the future, in our building, which would, you know, we hope that we're going to be breaking ground this year, and hopefully it'll be done by 2023 or the early part of 2024, that my holograph will be sitting in that building and people can up and they can ask me a question and my holograph will answer the questions.
You're going to be asking yourself some questions there?
Well, I won't, but other people will. Anybody can come and, you know, like a group of school children can come and they can ask questions about the United Farm Workers, about the Community Service Organization, which is a group that we organized before we started the union, or about the Dolores Huerta Foundation, you know?
That is
How did you do
amazing.
this? How did you organize? Okay. And I don't know, this is something that the Oakland Museum may think about, maybe putting this, you know, doing this eventually with one of the great leaders that you have in that area, which you had many.
Yeah. Technology, what it's come to. It's amazing. Let's see. What, I believe I have enough for one more question. And then we'll move on to the question and answers from everyone else. What advice would you give to our future generations?
Well, I think that right now we are in such a critical time in our country that, you know, I've been thinking about, like, all of us are aware of what's happening in Ukraine, where you have a dictator that is trying to take over another country. And the democracy, because democracy is not respected, that people can choose their own leaders. And then we think about what's happening in the United States of America, that we have a similar enemy. We have people in our country that do not want us to have a democracy. You know, we have a lot of voter suppression that is going on in our country to keep people of color from voting. We have all of this hatred that is being leveled against, excuse me a second, we have all this hatred that is being leveled at people that are transgender or gay. And, you know, we have the big thing, attacks on women's reproductive rights, and all of these things that are being to divide people instead of bringing people together. They're trying to divide it. We saw this with the people that were anti-vaccines, anti-masking, excuse me. So we have a similar attacks on our democracy happening right now. And this is, I think, that something that's very, very close to the library community and the education community, where you have people that do not want the real history of the United States to be taught in our schools. And in libraries, trying to protect certain books from being displayed or used in our libraries. That is an attack on our democracy. And so that we have to really come together and say, we're not going to let you get away with this. You know, we are going to come together. Like if we were in Iraq, excuse me, if we were in Ukraine right now, okay, and we saw this attack on our democracy, and we see the bravery of the president and the bravery of the people there in Ukraine that are fighting for their democracy. Well, we in the United States, you know, we have to become the forces that are going to fight as vigorously against the attacks on our democracy right now, on the attacks on education, on the attacks on libraries. And, you know, one thing I love to quote Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who said during World War II, when they tried to take money out of education or take money out of the libraries, he said, we will not take one dime out of our libraries or out of our education system, because education is the soul of our country. And so that is what's happening today. We are having attacks on education, on truth. This is the soul of our country. And so we've got to understand what is going on. And we've got to, defend our democracy as vigorously as the people in Ukraine are defending their country.
Thank you. I completely agree there. Now for the questions and answers, I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague. She's a senior library assistant for the main library, Alma Garcia.
Hi, thank you so much, Dolores. Your words are truly inspiring for all of us. I've got a couple of questions that have popped up, some in the chat and then some in our Q&A. We have one question from someone who's involved with the unions. We struggle to get community support for union concerns. How has your organization fared gaining community support for union activity?
Well, part of the education that we do with the people that we organize is make them understand how important unions are. We have to remind people that unions are the ones that raise the wages and the working conditions and get benefits for working people. And the other thing is that they create the middle class. And if we don't have a middle class, we can't have a democracy. So unions are very, very vital to the democracy of our country. And so we encourage people to, if they can belong to a union, to do so. And we have to always support any kind of legislation that makes it easier for workers to organize.
Thank you. We have another question here regarding, let's see, find it here. Sorry, I'm going to two different screens here. Right now, there are a couple of bills that have gone to Congress regarding path to citizenship for undocumented farm workers and food workers. Between the U.S. Citizenship Act, the Citizenship for Essential Workers Act, and the Farm Workers Modernization Act, what are your hopes, concerns with each of these, and how best can we move forward to pressure Congress to make citizenship protection for farm workers a priority?
Well, I think we have to continue to work to get people elected to the U.S. Senate, because this is where all of these bills are stalled at this point. I know in California, we have two great senators, Senator Feinstein and Alex Padilla. But I think a lot of us in California that we have relatives in other states, in Arizona, in Texas, and some other areas, and say, can you please get involved in the electoral process so that we can elect senators from those other states, especially in Texas. Almost 50% of the population are Latino. And yet we see that many Latinos in Texas are not registered to vote, and they don't vote. And I know that one of the handicaps that they have is the one I mentioned before, where people have to find a deputy registrar to register you. And not only that, but when we think of also the attacks on women's right to abortion in Texas. If we have relatives in Texas, call them and say, look, could you please make an effort to get registered to vote, get your neighbors to register to vote, get your relatives to register to vote, because we can end that anti-democratic governance that we have in Texas right now. Just with the Latino community alone, we could end it if they would just get out there and register to vote. And this is an election year. And even in California, we have to be careful too, because we have 2/3 of the legislature are Democrats, but a lot of those Democrats are what I call corporate Democrats. They're there to defend the corporation. A really good example of this is what just happened recently, a few weeks ago, where the Healthcare for All bill was there. I think it's called Care California, where they were trying to get all Californians universal health care. And this means taking out the insurance companies, taking out the middle guys, so that we would have enough money to make sure that we cover everybody with health care. And the bill did not make it because of 3 votes, just 3 votes. And some of those people that did not vote for the bill were Latino Democrats. So we have to say, we're going to support progressive Democrats. We're not going to support corporate Democrats. The Republicans have a lot of corporate Republicans out there. We don't need any Republican light Democrats, okay? Either you're progressive or you're not. And if you're not, you know what? Join the other party, but don't go out there and pretend that you're going to support progressive values and then you don't.
Okay. Thank you. We have someone who is a teacher in Boston, in a Boston suburb. Thank you for joining us from that great distance. Here's your question. Most of my students are just now learning about the farm workers' rights movement. What advice do you have for these young people looking to enact change in their school and community?
Well, I would say that I get them involved. Right now, it's civic involvement, electoral engagement is extremely important to save our democracy. So one of the things you can do is there in Massachusetts is have the students send, they all know how to do emails, send an email to their representatives or to their senators in the Congress and say to them, could you please support all of those bills that will enable the essential workers that put the food on our table every day, farm workers, to be able to get legalization so they don't have to worry about deportation while they're out there picking our food. And that is a way for them to get involved and to understand what is actually going on. And in their own schools, and I think when we think of Boston, we think of that being pretty progressive, but there's still probably some things that they have to learn. And oh, I love this one too. Let's see if you can pull it off, okay? But when I lecture to students, I always remind them, in order to be able to fight racism, is that we have to remember that we are one human race. We have a lot of ethnic groups, we have a lot of nationalities, we have a lot of cultures, but we only have one human race, Homo sapiens. And that our human race came from Africa. And then our human race traveled across the planet. People got lighter in skin, lighter in eyes and hair, but they are still descendants of Africa, Mother Africa. And so we can say to all of those white supremacists out there and the neo-Nazis, get over it, you're Africans. And if people, children can understand that. And also to talk to them also about how, girls and boys, that we are equal. Boys might be stronger than the girls, but in intelligence and everything else, we are equal to boys. And that way we can fight that racism, the machismo, the misogyny with young people. And they understand. And I don't know what grade level you're at, but they all know about Martin Luther King, but do they know about Emmett Till, the young 12-year-old who was killed because he was supposedly whistled at a white woman? There's a documentary about him, and maybe they've already seen that. And there's another film I want to recommend to everybody. And they probably already have it in the Oakland Library, but it's called Foreigners in Their Own Land. Foreigners in Their Own Land. And this documentary shows what happened in the United States when the land that was taken from Mexico. Now we're talking right now about what Russia is taking from Ukraine, but the United States took 50% of Mexico to become the United States. And so Google a map of the United States before 1848, and 1/3 of the United States was Mexico. Mm-hmm. And so, and also to teach the children that the North American continent and the South American continent, the indigenous people here, that this is their land. This is their land. And they've never had reparations for the land that was taken from them. And when we talk about the people at the border, that are coming from Mexico, I mean, yeah, it's not the Mexican-American border, but they're coming from Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, seeking refuge in the United States. Okay, well, you know what? This is their land. And we talked to them about that they're immigrants. Well, the true immigrants are the ones that came from Europe. Mm-hmm. Like my great-grandmother who came from Spain, one of my great-grandmothers, but the rest of them, of course, were already here. Like to say we had one half of our grandparents were here welcoming the other half that were coming. And so that they can understand who are the true immigrants and what the people of color from the slavery, the Black slaves, that built the White House and the Congress and so many of the buildings in our country, And again, the other people that came and built the country, so they really understand. Yeah, and we have people that, of course, have contributed. Carlos Gomez, thank you, Carlos, for reminding me. People from Haiti and these other places. Because, you know, it's not enough to be saying I'm not a racist, and we want our young people not to be racist, but we also say to them, hey, you know what? We've got to be anti-racism. It's not enough to say I'm not a racist. We have to work to end racism. And also the misogyny, the machismo. You know, when we talk about the bills that are stuck right now in the US Senate, the Equal Rights Amendment for women is one of them. And a lot of women, you know, and girls don't know that we have not passed the Equal Rights Amendment, which would be an amendment to our Constitution that says that men and women are equal. And that is also stuck in the US Senate.
We're going to change course a little bit with this next question. We're looking for a little inspiration. Is there a book in your life that we could use with our kids? Is there a book that you find inspiration in that would be good for us to read to our kids and to talk about?
Well, you know, there's a lot of books out there. None of them, by the way, are authorized, but I have seen a lot of books there about me that they have my name on them. And there's probably a dozen books out there. I really can't say which would be the best one, but I think there's books now that I have seen for younger children that seem to be pretty good. And we are going to be working on the book, hopefully. There's going to be another movie that's going to be coming out. Gregory Nava, the great film director, the one that did Selena and El Norte, and Mi Familia, which of course are also movies that I hope are in your library, that he will be working on a narrative, and we will be having a book that will come out at the same time.
Okay, thank you. As a woman, what are some of the challenges you faced as you were advocating for women working in the, doing work in the fields?
Well, as you all know, there was a lot of sexual harassment against women. And, you know, we had to convince the women that they had to be, not to be afraid to file charges against their employers when this happened to them. And there was a lot of hesitation because a lot of times you have the families that work together, and women were always afraid if I complain, you know, the whole family's going to get fired from the job. And then they were also afraid that there would be some kind of violence that would happen, you know, against the person that was harassing them. Or sometimes a woman would be blamed for inviting the harassment. And one of the things that I did when I was with the United Farm Workers, I made sure that we had women on our negotiating committees, and that we had women in terms of the committees that we set up to enforce the contracts. So I always wanted to bring women into the picture. And there was one of the questions that talked about myself, considering myself a feminist. My mother was the strong voice in our family because my parents divorced when I was just a little kid. So my mother, who was a businesswoman, she was an entrepreneur. She always made the decision in our family, and I always saw her as a leader. Where the breakdown came down for me, and I think for a lot of Latina women, because we are Catholics or we come from evangelical religions, we have been taught that we should be against abortion. And that is a difficult for a lot of women to be able to come to deal with that. But the one thing that we just have to say to all of our women, and I think we could start when kids are students, is that women are the only ones that should have the say and control over their own bodies. If they want to have children, okay. If they don't want to have them, okay. It's up to every woman to make that choice for herself, not let the politicians or any religious leaders have a say over a woman's body. And the same thing comes to gay rights too. That's really important. And you know, I like to quote Benito Juarez, the president of Mexico, who had the great saying, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz, respecting other people's rights is peace. When it comes to women's reproductive choices, that is their choice. When it comes to people who they want to marry or live with, that is their choice. Nobody should interfere with that. Those are human rights that we have.
Thank you for those words. That is one of my favorite sayings, also from Benito Juarez, that I was taught at a very, very young age by my father. I have another question here from an educator from Minneapolis Public Schools. We are currently on strike. This page just moved on me. We are currently on strike. What are some ways we can involve our community more?
You know, I always feel that teachers well, let me say, I was a former teacher, and I know how hard being a teacher is. Not only do you have to teach, you have to do the preparations, you have to do, you know, grade the papers, et cetera, et cetera. And there's often not enough time in the day or in the week for teachers to do all that they want to do. But somehow we've got to get teachers to come into the community and speak out of the community, because teachers' voices are so essential and are needed right now. We have to advocate to get more money for teachers. You know, people can become a prison guard in a prison and make more money than teachers do. And yet they don't have to go through all of the different colleges to be able to get their degrees to become a teacher. So teachers, you know, they need to be in the forefront of our society, because they are such an important element of society. And so if there's somehow we could get in every school, and we could get, but I don't know how we do this, but maybe get extra funding so that at every school that is located in every neighborhood, we could have organizers that come out of those schools and go into the community to do the organizing and get the parental support that the teachers need. Somewhat like the work that we're doing. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We had one school, in some of the rural schools, we know sometimes you have people that are in charge of those schools that are not competent. But we had one school where the person that was in charge of the curriculum for the teachers didn't even have a degree. He happened to be a friend of the school board members, right? And we had another school where they wanted to take away the farm worker breakfast program for the farm worker kids. You know, but luckily we got our people elected to the board, to the school board. And so they fired that principal and they kept the breakfast program for the children. We had another school district where the superintendent was taking money from the school. Well, the parents found out with the help of the teachers, and they got rid of that superintendent. But we need to have a parental support, but it's got to come from the community. This is what we are doing in the 250 schools that we are active in. And we're organizing the parents and the students to support the teachers to do the work that they do. But we need to get much, much more support, financial support for teachers and community support for teachers. And we need the teachers to be able to have that little wedge of time that they can go out into the community. And in a lot of school districts, they prevent teachers from doing that. But teachers have to be and are the leaders, but we need to hear their voices more.
Very true. A few more questions here. We have someone here who went to Dolores Huerta Middle School in Oakland. And their question is, what is it like to have a school named after you?
Well, I think it's a big honor. And I have many, many schools named after me all over the country. I have schools in school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that they changed from Christopher Columbus School to Dolores Huerta School. And so recently I had a school in San Francisco. I have a school named in San Francisco. I have another recent one down in Burbank, where they changed the name to Dolores Huerta because the person that they had named the school before was a eugenicist who believed in white supremacy. And so I probably have about a dozen schools that are named after me, but it's also a big honor. But you know, all the recognitions that I receive are on the backs of the people who sacrificed to build a farm workers union. And there were 5 martyrs. The first one was a young Jewish girl named Nan Friedman. Our second martyr was Juan de la Cruz. He was a Catholic. He was the third one. The second one was a young Yemen, a Muslim named Najid Aifala. Then we had Rufino Contreras and Rene Lopez. So 5 people that were killed just because the farm workers wanted to have the right to organize. They wanted to have bathrooms in the fields, cold drinking water, rest periods, unemployment insurance, and they were killed to get those rights. So, and a lot of farm workers, you know, that lost their homes, that were beaten, that went to jail. So when I get anything named after me, I do it on the backs of all of those people that made those sacrifices.
Very a lot of emotions hearing you say those words. Yes. We have a question from a 12-year-old who has experienced situations of people, mostly boys, being sexist to me and other girls. Have you ever had experience with someone being sexist to you when you were younger? I think they're looking for a little bit of advice here.
I should say that as a woman growing up and as a girl growing up, that we had to face a lot of sexism, and it still happens today. And I think every single woman that is on the Zoom has experienced sexism. Every single person of color that is on the Zoom has experienced racism. You know, the one good thing that we have today is that when people do that, you know, when any kind of sexual predatory, sexual harassment, you know, that we can report them, they can lose their job, they can go to jail, you know. So we have protections now that we never had before. Yeah, but the one thing is, as women, we should, and girls, we never be afraid to speak out and let people know what's going on, you know, and to be able to defend ourselves. And sometimes as women, you know, we are raised to always stand up for somebody else and just serve, especially men. And, you know, in the Latino culture, you know, a woman is supposed to serve a man's his plate at the dinner table and to cook for men and whatever. And luckily, my mother didn't raise me that way, because my mother had to work 2 jobs. So my brothers and I were raised, I call her equal opportunity mother. My brothers had to learn how to do everything. They washed dishes, you know, they made the beds, they ironed their own clothes, they washed their own clothes. And I raised my own sons the same way. So my sons are all, they know that no woman is going to wait on them, that they have to wait on themselves. And young women today are saying, Charlie, you know, hey, we're not going to do all of that, you know. Right now we're going to take care of ourselves. And you, my boyfriend, my husband, my brother, you have to take care of yourself.
Yes. I'm going to read this next question. It's from another teacher in Oakland. She says, I'd like to encourage youth in my school to be social activists, and it'd be so helpful for them to network with other youth social activists, especially those who have been trained by you. Can the youth in my school connect with youth activists trained by you by these experiences in your organizational method? So what would be the best way that they could connect with your organization and some of your youth social activists that you have?
Well, we're on the web. It's at DoloresHuerta.org. DoloresHuerta.org. We're on the web, and yeah, please, we like to partner with organizations. And in fact, right now we are partnering there in Oakland with what is happening, where they are trying to close all of these schools where kids of color attend. So we're working, you know, we're partnering with them to see if we can help them keep those schools open. This is a shame that they want to close the schools in Oakland where kids of color go to school. You know, it's specifically targeted the kids of color. And I guess this is why we're building this building down in downtown in Bakersfield to have an organizing academy. And yes, if people want to, you know, learn our system of organizing, we'd be very, very glad to teach you. Just get in touch with us, and we can make that happen. It's DoloresHuerta.org.
Okay. We have another question from someone else with the Oakland schools.
Could I add something to
this? Yes, go ahead.
Right, yeah. In fact, I think that in Oakland, we would like to invite other people to get involved in this project. They get involved in this project to keep the schools in Oakland open. You know, they tried to do that in Pasadena. They had the Jackie Robinson School. Jackie Robinson, who was like the first Black player to break the bias in baseball. And they were going to shut down the Jackie Robinson School also. And you know what? The community got together and they stopped it. And I believe that the community in Oakland can do the same thing and stop the closing of these 17 schools that they want to do in Oakland. So we want to invite you to join that, to get involved with that project. And then maybe somebody can put that on the chat. Maybe Carlos, see that you're participating,
Mhm.
that we can tell people how to get involved so we can stop the closing. And I think all of us coming together that we can stop the closing of those schools. And the other thing is that this is an election year. I started out at the beginning talking about how we have to defend our democracy. Well, this is the way that we can do it, because we have a lot of good people that are going to be running for office, and we could get young people to go out there and they can start, phone banking to get people registered to vote, and they can get involved in going door to door. Now that the pandemic is slowing down, we can start going door to door, reminding people why it's important for them to register to vote, and then also get them out to vote there before June. I think the absentee ballots are going to land at people's homes in May, and then we can get people to vote. That's really, really important, because the only way that people learn how to keep democracy is by practicing democracy. And once you practice democracy as a young person, that will stay with you for your entire life.
We have a question of someone who's asking if you have any in-person events coming up.
Well, I just came from an in-person event at the White House with President Biden and Jill Biden, the First Lady, and it was to celebrate Women's History Month. But I can say this, if we can look again on our website, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, sometimes we could put that on the calendar, or if people want to invite me to an in-person event, again, they can, on our website, there's a way that you can actually do that invitation.
One more question from a teacher, a Spanish teacher. I'm a Spanish teacher at a high school in MA, Massachusetts, and our students learn about your contributions to society. What would you want them to learn from your experience in our class?
The main thing is that we want them to learn that they have power, that they can make things happen, and the need for them to participate again in civic action. I think that is so important. And if teachers, all the teachers out there, if you can think of some civic action that your students can participate in, because it's just so empowering for them when they can learn that they participated in something and then they won that policy that they were working on. Because then, and they can also say, hey, this is the way that democracy works. It works when people can get involved. And there's a lot of issues in every community that people can get involved in. Like even right now, I mentioned all these bills that are stuck in the Senate, the Equal Rights Amendment, to give legalization to our essential workers, not only farm workers, but other essential workers, people that are out there. We had in the Build Back Better Act, where President Biden was trying to pass this law that we would have a universal daycare, which is something that every family needs, where children can have, daycare that is affordable for them, where children can be educated and also being taken care of so that they're safe. The John Lewis Voter Act to be able to prevent the voter suppression that is going on right now. So children can send an email, or they can send a postcard to the president or to their senator or their local representative. We have a lot of states now. I'm sure that some of the states on the East Coast, like Massachusetts, you wouldn't have this. We have a lot of states where they're attacking the transgender. We were just in Idaho this last week, and they have a bill there that is specifically attacking transgender young people. Can you imagine that? That is so, so cruel. So to think of some issue that the students can get involved in, that they can send emails or they can make postcards and or get a visit, even if the students can get a visit with a local representative about some particular issue.
I just want to share a post that someone posted here in the chat. They live across the street from a Dolores Huerta K-5 school, and to see the mural of you with the bullhorn that says "Si se puede" is very inspirational, and they find that very wonderful. So just wanted to pass that along. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Let's see, I'm trying to, there's a few more questions that have come in and some comments, and I'm just trying to make sure that I get to that ones here. So this is being recorded and it will be available after. I believe you'll be able to see it on the through the library's website. And if you're not sure, you can call the library at 510-238-3134, and we'll try to direct you to where you would be able to see this recording. And I just want to add to what Brenda said. Thank you for being with us. I'm going to see if we can get a few more questions in before we are done for the day. But I think I'd also like to leave some time for you to make any other closing remarks, words of inspiration, and our marching orders as we go forward after this event for the rest of us to take and carry on the legacy of all of you that have come before us.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the interview, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to sign off right now because I have to be on another event in just a few minutes, and and something that I cannot reschedule because it's so anyway, but maybe we can set up another event. I really love this, and I hope the people that are with us also enjoyed it. Yeah, but please go on our website. It's doloreshuerta.org. And again, if people want to send questions there, I'm sure that I can have our staff person who has been so active here, Carlos Gomez Arteaga, that we can, Carlos, maybe you can make a commitment that if people want to send in the questions, we promise that we'll give you the answers.
Brenda, do you want to close off?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming in tonight. I know you're such a busy woman, but thank you for making some time for us. And I would like to say thank you again to our friends at the Oakland Public Library for making this event possible.
Well, I want to thank both of you. I've always thought the Oakland Public Library is someplace that's very special. I have been there several times over the past years. And I guess I want to leave you with the parting words. And whenever I speak, I always end up with these words to remind people that they have the power. And if we were in person, I would say to you, I would give you a chance and say, who's got the power? I would want you to respond, we've got the power. What kind of power? People power.
People power.
So please remember that. And remember that all of us have to come in and be the warriors for democracy. Si se puede.
Si se puede.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good evening.
Thank you all for joining again.
You're welcome.